So gang, here's the deal. I'm going to get a whole bunch of things closed, and that person can no longer talk to me. I'm closing that. It's gone. And then we are going to have some fun. So I appreciate, Krista, you asking and finding out who's who in the zoo and what's going on. So here's the deal. I love joint ventures. I love working with people in joint ventures. I love creating invitations. I love crafting opportunities that will work. I love doing things a little bit differently than perhaps most of, let's call it, the JV world does. And that is what we are going to talk about today. The number one thing in the entire universe that will make the most difference for you and your business is if you can master the art of the invitation. And I want to be very clear about this, is that it is an art, that there is no question about that. And I might as well just say right out of the gate here before we get into the depths and the details of it, we don't use the word invitation accidentally or even loosely. The vast majority of our world has a JV pitch. And I don't know about you guys, but here, let me make sure I can get my, I want to be able to read the chat. I don't know about you guys, but getting pitched is not always the greatest, most fun and exciting thing for me in my universe. And if any of you have a little bit of, understand the distinction of invitation, which is like, imagine that you get a beautiful handcrafted invitation in your mailbox, with a little wax seal to a special event that you get to go to. That is quite a different feel than being at a networking event and getting cornered by somebody in the back who spews or vomits their pitch upon you and gives you 3 business cards because one just isn't enough to throw away. They'd like you to have 2 more to throw away, which you're supposed to give to friends, neighbors, and strangers. Whoever came up with that idea, by the way, I think fell and hit their head. But that's a whole other conversation. So here's the thing. We want to practice the art of the invitation. That is what our time here together will be. And I'm going to dive on into that process. Now, do me a favor and chat in the chat. Give me an idea. Have you ever been pitched when you were not without your agreement and you weren't too keen on it? If you've ever been pitched without your agreement and you weren't too keen on it, just give me a yes, you bet. Yeah. And by the way, on the one hand, I want to be clear about this. On the one hand, I admire and respect and even like people who are like willing to talk about what they do and those sorts of things. But let's be clear about this. There's a way that gets results and there's a way that chases people away. So let's be clear about which is which. All right, I'm going to play our little logo because I like our little logo. This is the JVology logo, and you are at, of course, a JVology event. We are the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit. And today we're going to talk about the art of the joint venture invitation. And what we're going to cover today, short and sweet, is this. And what we're covering today, by the way, is predicated upon this little meme here, is that you're likely working far too hard for far too little. And as an entrepreneur, if you've ever had that thought of holy, you know what, all of the things I tackle, all the things I take care of, all of my responsibilities, all the time, effort, energy, all the investment that I've made, all of the stuff that is involved in this entire process, man, I could be making more money. Just give me a hell yeah, or raise your hand, or comment in the chat. Yes, without a doubt. And it is, by the way, the truth of most entrepreneurs. There was a study that was done not so long ago that basically says this: 2/3, it's like 64.6% or something. 2/3 of all entrepreneurs are making less than $100,000 a year. Now, when you think about that, and you compare that to, say, a manager's job at Starbucks, which in Canada is like $88,000, but that manager gets to come in, work their 40 hours, do their scheduling, get the hell out of Dodge, and go home and actually live their life. Whereas an entrepreneur has to juggle bookkeeping, accounting, hiring, firing, staffing, delivery, marketing, digital marketing, joint venture relationships. I mean, like that, it's a little bit on the crazy side. So here's the deal. What we are after here is to master the art of a JV invitation such that $100,000 a year in your business is like far, 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 far behind you, and that you get to enjoy the process more. So here's the pillars that we are going to cover. Number 1, becoming attractive to JV partners. So instead of, and this is one of the key pieces, is just imagine this for a moment. If you've ever been around someone or something, an organization, person, place, or thing that is like, man, I'd like to spend more time with them. Man, I'd sure like to get invited to their party. Man, I'd sure like to be able to go for a glass of wine with them. Or sure, I'd like to get closer to them. Here's the honest to God truth. Becoming attractive as a JV partner and having people pursue you is one of the single most significant and powerful processes. Full stop. And please hear this, generally speaking, you don't become attractive by pitching people without agreement. You don't become attractive by always trying to sell something in every second of every conversation. Like, yeah, I was going to make fun of somebody who was pushing me because you should really follow the ABCs, always be closing. And I said, I have a preferential ABC. It's like, always be conscious, take your closing elsewhere. It's a different conversation. Anyway, so we want to become attractive. Then we're going to talk about the 6 pillars of invitations that work. And there are 6 fundamentals that if you stay true to them, you will find that your results go through the roof in this process. Then we're going to talk about context and environment. And this is another way of just saying agreement and how you can ensure that you create agreement, that you have agreement for those processes. Then we're going to dive into connection and relevance. And this is strongly tied to a bunch of the training that we do at JVology Live in our upstream and downstream program, in our in-stream program, which is understanding what it takes to go from being unknown to someone to having influence and intimacy where they are willing to participate and to do something and to experiment with something and to try something and to buy something and to show up at something simply because you asked. Then we're going to briefly talk about conversion and results. And we're not going to go into great depth and detail about conversion and results. You just need to know what it means and why it's important. Then we're going to talk about ease of working together. And on that note, that's going to be our time. Now, here's the part that I want to be clear about. I'm at heart a teacher. So you should have pen and paper. You should have a document open to type in. You should be taking notes as we go through this process. We do this in a smaller, intimate Zoom process where we can actually connect and hear and see one another and all those sorts of things so that we can actually answer questions, apply, be specific, all of those pieces. We would ideally like this to be a two-way dialogue. As much as I may like to talk, if my wife was here, she'd be making fun of me about that. As much as I may like to talk, the truth of the matter is that I also really like to have conversations because they, generally speaking, get us further. Okay, top of the list. And I would say this, if you're taking notes, write this headline is, how do I become more attractive to JV partners? Like pose the question to your head, to your heart about what does this actually mean for me to become more attractive to JV partners? Because it's a different question. That's a very different grounding, by the way. So it's, oh, let's become attractive. It's like, in this particular circumstance, plastic surgery and all those other things that people do ain't gonna work, okay? So this is about how do I become more attractive to a JV partner? So this idea is a little bit like reversing the psychology of sales, okay? If you're in a bar or if you're in a environment where everybody is chasing, the person that stands out is the person who's not chasing. Does that make sense? So you want to really understand that if you can just get the game shifted to people want to work with you instead of you have to go chase them, that goes an incredibly long way. And that is at the core of what we are talking about here. So here's the top of the list. And I'm going to probably go on a bit of a rant about this because I see people doing it poorly over and over and over again. Show up physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, show up. And we live in a world where, quite frankly, the vast majority of entrepreneurs, the vast majority of JV partners are frankly zooming it in instead of actually truly genuinely show up. So if you want, and by the way, here's a little hint, by the way, gang, on this call are a whole bunch of people who are trying to build their businesses using joint ventures. On this call are a whole bunch of people that have lists that you could probably gain access to if you actually showed up. On this call are people who could probably make $5, $10, $15, $20, $25,000 for you. And yet we've got lots of folks who show up and just turn the camera off. The odds of you finding a partner here, the odds of you actually being seen here, the odds of you actually having a true connection here with your camera off is nominal. I was about to speak Saskatchewan, but I reeled myself back. Anyway, so I want to be really clear about this. Showing up means completely with all that you've got. And I'm going to give you two very significant and important examples. So we run this thing called the JVology Summit. The JVology Summit, our last one was just in Cabo. We finally have gotten back to some real live in-person events. It was spectacular. We're going back in September, but I'm going to give you two very different examples. So a gentleman that I was doing some work with, he's a doctor, a gastroenterologist. He is busy beyond belief. He has a lineup of literally surgeries that in the Canadian healthcare system are like 7 months in advance. So his level of busy and most people's level of busy is actually different. So I want to cut him some slack first and foremost. But he decides he wants to come to the summit to promote a product that he has invented and all those sorts of things. So we talk about it and it's like, yes, that's going to be totally awesome. He says, can I bring my assistant? I say, yes, you absolutely can. That'd be fantastic. And then here's what transpires is that his assistant came a little bit late. And then he showed up only for the day where he did his presentations and then he left. And then his assistant left 2 hours early. Now, I get he's busy, but I want to be very clear about this. The odds of me then supporting that product are exactly zero. Zero. If he shows up like that in a room full of 30 entrepreneurs that any one of them could add 10, 100, even $250,000 to their bottom line in terms of distribution of that product, if they show up like that there, the odds of me working with them are zero. Now, shock of all shocks, by the way, I want to be super clear about this. This was part of the fun part about this, was that he also had the audacity later on to say, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to come back to one of those summits because I didn't get much results. But now I'm really going to speak Saskatchewan because this is what I said to him. Of course you didn't get any results, you asshole. You didn't show up. Well, yeah, I was there for my presentation. So nobody gives a shit about your presentation. They were there to try to meet you and connect with you and see if there was some way in which we could work together. What you pulled was a moronic move. And quite literally, even if we were interested in your product, we now are not interested in you. Give me a hell yes if you understand that example. Now, I want to flip the coin to something completely different. So in an attempt to become more attractive to a JV partner, I offered a friend/acquaintance. I'd done some work with him on his mastermind years ago, Dan Martell, a VIP spot, which meant I paid for his ticket and he got to do a presentation in Cabo. Now, I said to him, and I know this guy's busy. He runs like an 8+ figure business, blah, 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 blah. And I say, so here's what we'd really like. We'd like you to show up and we'd like you to be in the room and we'd like you to contribute as much as you possibly can. And that would be awesome. Now, at this summit, we have this thing called the Most Generous Award, voted on by the members of the group, not by me. I can't play and I can't vote. It's not my deal. Okay. So Dan shows up so all in, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, resources out the wazoo. He shows up so much that he won the Most Generous Award. Now, generally speaking, the VIPs don't win the Most Generous Award because often, they're more on the I'm here to speak and then I'm going to take off. But he won it because he was all in and he showed up. And by the way, he's got a big book launch coming up. Guess how many people in the room agreed to promote the book launch? Every single freaking person. And many of them said, and I'll share with my tribe to see if they can help too. So here's the very first thing I want to say about this. And this might, and gang, I'm not trying to be parental about this. But for the love of all things good in the world, if you want partners, you've got to show up. And you can't show up half-assed and then be pissy about my JV partnerships aren't really going the way that I wanted to. It doesn't work that way. Okay, I'll get off my high horse for a brief moment. This falls under the category of showing up, by the way, which is to give. And it is one of the reasons why Dan won Most Generous. It's one of the reasons why every single person in the room is supporting that launch, all those things. He showed up and he gave. And here's what's interesting about this is that he gave in a generous and significant manner. And he didn't just give to the people in the room. Now, I'm going to broaden this as another example here. So I have a dear friend of mine. She ran a speaking training business. She always traveled with her mother. And by the way, those two looked so much alike. It was absolutely crazy and insane. Like it was like they could probably have passed for sisters in all seriousness. Anyway, they traveled together and people would be after her to get a JV deal, to see if they can speak on her stage, to see if they're, all those sorts of things. And part of her filtering process to see if she was interested in dealing with them or working with them was, how did they treat my mother? Because my mother was always standing there. Did they say hello? If they were buying a glass of wine, did they buy a glass of wine for me and my mom? Did they even acknowledge her? Was their back to there? Like just how did they behave in that concept, in that context? And time and again, lots of folks who were focused on, I want you and I want you to do the thing that I want you to do, and I'm going to do whatever I can for you, would get dismissed because they weren't paying attention to what and who matters in their life. If that makes sense to you, give me a hell yes, because here's the truth of the matter. You can often get further faster with an ideal JV partner by doing something marvelous for their executive assistant, by doing something marvelous for their mom, their child, their daughter, their brother, their sister, you insert the blanks. And honest to goodness, gang, particularly, and I know some of you were at the masterclass yesterday, and honest to goodness, gang, lots of these sort of issues that people have with JVs, like, I don't have a big enough list to JV. You know what? You may well not have a huge list, but you might have something that your target partner's child absolutely loves. I'll give more examples of that as we go along, but here's the other part, is be concise. Be concise, be concise, be concise. So what that simply means is this: if you have a deal and an opportunity, get to it fast. If you have something you want to contribute to move the needle in the relationship, get to it fast. I'll use a brief example of this. Business partner, dear friend of mine, Joshua. In fact, Joshua, if any of you get the Joint Venture Success System, he handles a bunch of the training in the Joint Venture Success System. So Joshua was pretty artful at building strategic relationships with JV partners. So there'd be a big name speaker, and I'll actually use his name just because it was kind of funny, John Asaraf. So John was speaking at an event that I was speaking at, that I met Joshua at. Joshua had some stages because he'd been doing some personal development work and promotional work up in Eastern Canada. And so there's a line up a mile and a half long to see John. And it's like, and Joshua's like, I'm not going to wait, but I got to talk to him. So here's what he does. He writes on the back, stages, Eastern Canada. I have a multitude of them. And while this lineup is happening, he just goes to the front while somebody's stepping away before the next person comes and says, hey, John, loved it. I have stages in Eastern Canada. If you're interested, I'd love to put you on them. Poof, card goes over. John calls him that night. Simple, fast, easy. Didn't have to wait in line. Didn't have to blow sunshine up his ass. Didn't have to do a whole bunch of other things. It's just poof, that's how that goes. So if you have something, be concise and be clear that you know what's going on. And then, of course, participate in balance. And here's a quick little tip, taught to me by my mother, which is, if there's 4 people at a table having dinner and you're talking more than 25% of the time, you should probably shut up. Now, that's a little harsh, but time and again, when I see people trying to position themselves for partnership, they try too hard, they talk too much, and push the prospect and partner away. And if you've ever been in one of those circumstances, give me a hell yes in the chat. Yes. And by the way, I want to be clear, I didn't say don't say anything, because they've got to be attracted to you. They've got to get a sense of your energy. They've got to get a sense of your intelligence. They got to get a sense of your capacity. They got to get a sense of who you are in the world. They got to get a sense of what your stand is. They got to get a sense of things. But if you dominate a conversation or a table out of proportion, please hear this, it pushes partners away. And by the way, I want to just be very clear about this. I don't know how many of you know who Glenn Ledwell is, but he has one of the larger lists in the universe. We were sitting at a table in, is that San Diego, or I don't know where, it was San Diego. Anyway, somebody was pursuing him very, very hard. And it was offside. And quite literally in the middle of that pursuit, he gets up and says to me, and your wife says, hey, come over here. I want to ask you a quick question. Like it was just like, it was that loud and that offside. And guess who, by the way, had a JV partnership that night? It wasn't Mr. Yappy, it was me. So it's these things that people just get carried away with, that I think most people are pretty good at with regular relationships, but then they fall utterly and completely to pieces in the business context because I think they think too much is riding on it. But you got to back it up. Be authentic. And I'm not saying that you got to lead with, I'm definitely, by the way, not saying you got to lead with your wound, but I am saying this, is that if you are all show without the truth of, and yes, I have a shit show or three going on in my life, or yes, I made a horrific mistake in assessing this particular process. If that isn't a part of it, what happens is that, again, people will push away from you. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's less than conscious. But let's be perfectly clear about this. In the joint venture space, things go to hell in a handbasket. Things don't work out the way you always want. And to pretend that it's always, rainbows and unicorns wouldn't be the wisest call in the universe. So please, for the love of all things good in the world, we know you want to look good in the eyes of your prospects and your clients and your partners and all those sorts of things. And we also know you're a human being, which means you got some stuff that's great. You got some stuff that's marginal. You got some stuff that's on fire. And if you're not willing to talk about all of it, then our little internal BS detector goes off and you become a very unattractive partner. All right. Stop pitching and invite. Okay. Now, here's the key piece to stop pitching and invite. Any wild guesses? And I'm going to pause for a brief moment. Many people need to hear your mom's wisdom. My mom would be very happy about that. As she gets a little bit older, she's actually the one who'd be happy to tell people, even if they didn't want to hear it. Anyway, I do love it. Yes, and Don, you just hit the nail on the head. The key distinction between a pitch and an invitation is agreement. Agreement, 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 agreement. And it is as simple as this. It's like, hey, I have a project going on in the crypto space. We have this little membership that is sort of growing like wildfire. I think it might be an opportunity for you and your list. Do you want to have a conversation about that? That's it. Nothing more complex than that. And if they say no, it's like, all good. They say, I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Let's try it. It opens up the conversation in a collaborative manner. And honest to goodness, for the love of all things good in the world, if you don't even listen to anything else I say here, that sentence and that agreement can add $100,000 to your JV income this year. Hey, I have a project coming up. It's called JVology Live. It is 3 of the most amazing days in the entire universe, and you and your list might enjoy participating. Do you want to talk about how we might be able to collaborate? They say yes or no. If they say yes, generally speaking, we've got them. Ask first, ask first, ask first, ask first. And then here is the ninja trick of the universe to get somebody's attention and to become incredibly attractive to them. Make them money. We are all entrepreneurs. We are all in this process of trying to get our gift out into the world, of trying to serve and support our clients, of trying to send our kids to university, of trying to do whatever it is that we got to do in our life and in our world. That's all of us. So send them clients. And by the way, that could mean a big promotion for them. That could mean you write a blog post about them. That could mean you share some of their Facebook message pages. That could mean you facilitate a personal introduction. That could mean you do anything under the sun. But send them clients, and they will know who you are. They will pay attention to you, and they'll be far more attracted to you than they were before you did that. And the reason being is that you're living a fundamental concept that we call a joint venture is a game of I'll go first. If you want to be relevant to somebody, then do something that's relevant to them. If they're entrepreneurs, clients are a beautiful way. It's one of the ways most entrepreneurs keep score. Clients, income. Deliver those two things together, you are suddenly in a different space than the vast majority of the world who is trying to get something from their partner instead of give something to their partner. You with me? All right. Now, I'm going to make this bigger, and I don't know if it's going to make any difference for you on the other side there, but This idea of being relevant and doing something significant for the person. Excuse me. So Tom Hanks, by the way, I just love the brilliance of this. So Tom Hanks, the New York Times, told the New York Times that he's an avid collector of typewriters. He once owned hundreds of them. Hanks told the Times that he got his first typewriter when he was 19 and began collecting them ever since as a way to stay grounded. Okay, now let's be clear about this. Do any of you know how you get Tom Hanks in a movie? Yeah, and type it in, or if you know. No, I see lots of blank face. Okay, so here's the interesting thing about Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, if the agent, you can get a script to Tom with through an agent, but let's imagine that Tom says he's interested. Tom is one of the only actors in the history of Hollywood who has this agreement with Hollywood. I'll tell you what you'll pay me. I'll tell you. What that means is he quite literally has a blank check with every studio in Hollywood. Virtually all of their actors, it's like, hey, we're going to ask Johnny Depp to be a pirate and we're going to pay him $300 million. And Johnny will say, well, yes or no, or maybe there's some negotiation. But here's the deal. There's no negotiation with Tom. If you want him for the movie, he reads the script, he says he thinks he fits, then he says to you, that'll be $400,000, or that'll be $40 million, or that'll be whatever the heck it is. Whatever he says it is what it is. That's an incredible position of power, no? So it gives you an idea of how hard Tom Hanks is to get, okay? So that's context for this story that I want you to understand. So, because I just love this. So this guy who has a podcast sent Tom Hanks a 1934 Smith Corona typewriter with a typed invitation to come on my podcast. This was his response. Dear Chris, Ashley, and all the diabolical geniuses at Nerdist Industries, just who do you think you are to try to bribe me into an appearance on your thing with this gift of the most fantastic Corona silent typewriter made in 1934? You are out of your minds if you think, ... that I, ... wow, this thing is great action. And this deep crimson color. Wait. I'm not so shallow as to ... And it types nearly silently. Oh, okay. I'll have my people contact your people and we'll work out some sort of an interview process. Damn you all to hell, Tom Hanks. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, the perfection and beauty of this gift and positioning of going first, being attractive, doing something that moves the needle, something that's incredibly relevant to a person. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is 192. This is what I'm talking about when we are paying attention to becoming attractive, relevant, moving the needle, and doing something significant and specific. Honest to God, in the world of joint ventures, I hear 17,000 times a day. I don't have a big enough list. I can't do anything that's meaningful, important. These guys spent $500 on an old shitty typewriter and got Tom Hanks, who costs hundreds of millions of dollars. That's pretty powerful. Does this make sense to you, gang? We are looking to be relevant and attractive. And that doesn't have to include the size of your list. In any way, shape, or form, we can be a hell of a lot more creative than that. Does that, just give me, does that example land, first and foremost? Okay, and by the way, it doesn't have to be anywhere near as complex as this. Krista knows this story. For like a year and a half, I had one favorite belt. And it was a belt that has a beautiful Porsche logo that one of my clients / partners sent to me. And by the way, I don't even think it was leather. I think it was plastic because it had one of those little inside clippy things. But I loved, number one, the thought, and I loved the actual process because I've been restoring Porsches since I've been like 19 years old. I am like, it was just this beautiful thing. And frankly, if I hadn't lost 30 pounds, I'd still be wearing the belt. It just doesn't fit me anymore. But it was just one of those pieces where It was practical. It spoke to my hobby. It was something that I loved, and I wore it damn near every day. So be creative in that process. Here's another quick example of that. These are dear friends of mine, community members at JVology, and their company's called Turnkey Podcast, and it's Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner. And what's interesting about this is that this, I see Michael's half his head. And by the way, so Michael, wave. So this is my buddy Michael. It's Krista's other half. I'm pretty sure it's not better. That's why I just say other, just so we're clear. It's like but quite literally, this story started in one of Michael's classrooms. So I was speaking on one of Michael's stages. I think it was the podcast blueprint. I'm not sure which one it was. You can, if you're unmuted, tell us which course that was.
Your authority blueprint.
Your authority blueprint, yes. So the authority blueprint. And anyway, Doug's there, and we sort of connect and all the rest of it. We end up going for dinner afterwards. And so I just said to Doug and Strick, it's like, listen, our community needs more platforms to share to become more relevant and to do this thing about becoming more attractive. Why don't you guys come and I'm just going to give you a sponsorship table. Just come to the damn thing, give a sponsorship table. And while they got there, they got a little carried away and incredibly generous and said, look, we're just going to give everybody here our podcast course if they want it. And that entire process just exploded them and positioned them in such a powerful way because they helped build platforms that help people join venture and just, raving fans and all those sorts of things. And they've earned over 6 figures in JV income in the year that they were in flow for the first year. So that's the piece that makes all the difference in the world. And which, by the way, just on that little idea of podcasts, at JVology Live, which every single one of you needs to get to, that's May 10th through 13th. Michael is actually going to be doing a presentation about getting your podcast up and running. He'll even help you figure out, 3 ways in which to monetize it. What is the fastest way to do it? What is the title of it and all those sorts of things. So if you've been sitting on the fence about a podcast, make sure you get your ass to JVology Live, because that's one more fantastic reason to do so. Anything you want to add to that?
I just double down on what you just said about all of this, Jay. I mean, as you know, with us working on even an event together coming up about how to couple joint venturing with podcasting, how they just blend so well together, you cannot go wrong. And it's a great tool, both of those. And JVing has helped me. It's put me on the map even. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right.
Yeah.
6 pillars to invitations that work. Get your pen and paper out, fingers ready, because I've been, the emphasis, and by the way, you might be sitting there going, it's like, Jesus, Murphy, he spent an awful lot of time about becoming attractive. I get the idea, become attractive. So my question to you is, under the statement I asked you to write, which is, how could I become more attractive as a JV partner? I'm curious to know how many points you have there and what you're going to do about it. Because here's the honest to God truth. If you get that big umbrella and you're actually strategically implementing those pieces, the world changes. The world changes. So, okay. 6 pillars of invitations that work. First and foremost, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but here's the honest to God truth. I was in the JV space and actually doing pretty decent in the JV space for at least a couple of years before it occurred to me that there are actually 2 different joint venture invitations. One of which is for upstream. These are the folks that we want them to share our product service offering with their list. And they send us leads. If we convert them, we send them money. Those are our upstream. Then there's the downstream folks. The downstream folks are anybody that solves any of the problems that I create or serves and supports my client in their next step and stage after they're done working with me, fundamentally. And it was funny to me. Well, like not funny, ha ha ha, like funny, it's like, oh, damn. It was funny to me that it took me so long to understand that these are 2 quite radically, dramatically different relationships. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world to get a downstream partner. I mean, let's imagine that I were, let's say Denise. Let's imagine I just said, hey, Denise, I've got this list of about 55,000 people that like to buy stuff and they're really good people and I kind of like them. And if I were to send you some of those people and they bought shit, would you send me money? It's a very difficult decision. She's going to have to sleep on it. We may have to negotiate. I mean, the answer to that is hell yes. It's It's a gift from heaven. I love that. That's a simple conversation. But let's also be clear about this. When we're building upstream partnerships, there's a different level of trust. There's a different level of relationship. There's a different level of care. Are you really going to take care of my customers, my clients, my family, all those, my tribe in the way that I want you to do? Are you going to pay when you said you're going to pay? Can you convert the way you said you're going to convert? It's a different process. So here's the honest goodness truth. The first thing you need to know is, are they upstream or are they downstream? And then you need to make the appropriate invitation for them. You probably don't have to work as hard to get a downstream partner as you do to get an upstream partner. And if you want an upstream partner whom you do not know yet, your task is to move them from unknown to, and by the way, we've got a rating scale that we'll teach you at JVology Live. It goes 0 to 10, and 10 is both influence and intimacy, where if you phone, they pick up. If you ask them to do something, if it's possible for them to do, they do it simply because you asked. Now, most business relationships, by the way, you start really doing well by the time you get into the 7s, the 8s, 6s aren't so bad either. But by the time you're at the 9s and the 10s, quite frankly, what you have is relationships that print money, which is a pretty spectacular thing if you can put your head and heart around that. But it takes some time to do that. So most of your upstream partners are going to take more time to build the relationship with, more strategy to become seen and known, all of those pieces. So that's your first step. So are they upstream? Are they downstream? The next piece you need to do is you need to just get perfectly clear on what is it, okay? And honest to goodness, all we're talking about is, hey, and I'll use JVology Live for an example because I want you to know what the hell it is. So JVology Live is a 3.5-day, highly experiential joint venture training program and joint venture partner development program. Every entrepreneur who wants to grow and scale their business through joint ventures should attend. Full stop. That's what it is. So if you can't say what your program, product, service experience is in 2 to 3 sentences, it's probably too complex and not clear enough. So you just got to give the laser version. 3-day live event that is going to train the fundamentals of joint ventures and deliver joint venture partners that will change entrepreneurs' lives. Now, who's it for? I've already gotten to the part of who's it for and what problem does it solve. Now, in the case of JVology Live, it solves 2 key problems. It solves problem number 1 that most entrepreneurs suffer from, which is good quality and abundant supply of leads. Now, I'll say it from the perspective of what the problem is. The problem is most entrepreneurs don't have enough leads. The leads they have are shitty. The leads that they get are expensive as hell. So it solves the problem of scarce, expensive, unqualified leads. That's one hand. On the other hand, because of how joint ventures work, if we solve the lead problem, we solve the income problem. But here's the next piece, is that we also solve the problem of the roller coaster revenue process by making certain that there is a recurring passive income stream from our JV partners when we share our clients with them to solve their next problems. So it solves the 2 most significant entrepreneurial problems, lead flow and recurring passive income. Now, the next piece of any JV invitation is people need to know, so what do I need to do? Okay, so that could be as simple as with JVology Live. It could be as simple as all you need to do is send 3 emails and have them come attend a webinar or a masterclass. Or it could be send an email where they go through our quiz, what we call your Find Your Flow quiz, where they can then book a one-on-one consultation with Krista or somebody on the team. Or it could be as simple as you have me come and speak to one of your masterminds or one of your special classes and all those sorts of things, where I will say, hey, if you want to increase your leads and passive income, I'll show you how, and we'll make an invitation for tickets to the course. So those are the 3 things that you could do. Simple, clean, easy. Do not make it hard. Do not make it hard. Now, the next piece is, what sort of tools and support is there for me? Well, we have Swipe Copy, we have masterclasses, we have my brain. we have this thing called the JVology roadmap. Totally felt it's a road the JVology roadmap that helps people navigate their way through. So we have an abundance of tools that make this simple, clean, and easy. You get your own affiliate link, you get all the swipe copy. All you have to do is share it. Away you go. And then what and when will I be paid? So you would get paid 40% of any ticket sale. And if somebody chooses to participate in our flow program or in our sale program, then you would get a bonus of $1,000. So well worth your while to serve and support people to build their business using joint ventures. Excuse me. So if you can get these 6 key points for your product, service, or experience, this is what follows a conversation that sounds like this. It's like, hey, David, we have an upcoming event that helps entrepreneurs meet partners and organize their business and marketing around joint ventures. Would you be interested in sharing that with your tribe? And if David said yes, I'd say, cool. So here's what I think. I think you're an upstream partner of mine. I think that you've got some entrepreneurs in your list who this could really benefit. And if you'd be willing to send them to this 3.5-day event where we're going to help them figure out how to position joint ventures, practice their JV invitation, actually get partners and grow their business, I think that could be pretty spectacular. So then we just go through the 6 steps. Now we put these things into what we call a JV one sheet, which we will teach you how to do at JVology Live, so you don't get lost in a retail conversation. But this is it. These are the core fundamentals. All right, so I got to hustle along here for a little bit. Context and environment. And I'm just going to read this and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So first and foremost, context and environment is the single most important, powerful process that makes it easy to do a JV invitation. You want to be in a space at the point in time where the objective for everyone there is to find a partner, is to make a JV invitation, is to see how they can serve and support their clients more completely and wholly, given what the opportunities are that are in the room. You want to be in a space that shares a language and a community. And this is, by the way, why I want you to join JVology. I want to be very clear about this. The heavy lifting is done if you are making JV invitations inside of a JV community. Just going to say that again, because for whatever reason, people don't seem to necessarily always land on that. The heavy lifting is done if you are making JV invitations inside the framework of a JV community. If somebody comes up to you and says, Connor, I think I'm your downstream because I solved the problem that you point out to them that you don't actually deal with, and we could make some tremendous money and we could serve your clients in an even more powerful, meaningful manner. And because he knows what downstream means, he knows how all those things work, we have that little bit of shorthand in communication, boom, we're on. Simple, clean, easy. So that is the reason why I think one of the most important decisions that any entrepreneur makes ever is what are the joint venture community or communities, because by the way, I'm a big believer, if you're going to go to the trouble of setting up your business to do joint ventures, you should not just be in one community. You should most certainly be in ours, but there's a whole bunch of others that you should also be in as well, because by the time you build the framework, then you should be taking advantage of all of the communities that you can actually show up in and participate in a meaningful manner. And in the context and environment of a joint venture conversation, what you're there to do is to build personal relationships. And I want to just give a little sidebar and a tangent here. So Michael and I have been doing business together in a bunch of different ways in terms of being on one another's stages and hosting a couple of webinars and those sorts of things. And one of the things that I did, just to say thank you to him, because he's been just incredibly generous about stage time and those sorts of things. One of the things I did was I invited him to come to Canada to go to a summit in Kananaskis, this beautiful mountain, all of those pieces. And the reason for that was just, number one, an expression of gratitude. And I wanted to build a more personal relationship with him. And I wanted to get to know him better because he's kind of a cool guy. But when you're flying in and speaking and flying out, you don't get too much time to really hang out. So, quite literally, it's like, come to the thing on me. Hell, just in terms of travel and all those sorts of things, you just stay at our place and then we'll drive out together, all those pieces. The purpose was to build a personal relationship. And then we ended up doing a whole bunch of other weird shit in crypto that would never have happened in a million years if we didn't have time to hang out, if we didn't have time to have a glass of wine, if we didn't have time to sit in the patio, if we did, that's the piece that makes the difference. And it was never in my agenda. I never thought of it in a million years. It was not what we were up to. We were up to building a relationship. And now we're JV partners on like, I think it's a little bit past, it's like on a 1 mega hash farm mining Ethereum, which, if you'd have told me that 4 months ago, I'd have said you fell and hit your head. Like that's not a thing we do. And now it's a thing we do, but because of relationships. Does that make sense to you, gang? Okay. Now, this is the last thing I want to say about context and environment. If you are in an environment that is about partnerships and joint ventures, you need to put a lid on your retail conversations. And let me be clear about this, and we'll talk a lot about it at JVology Live. There's a peer-to-peer conversation that says, hey, you and I have lists. You and I have platforms. You and I share the journey of our ideal clients. We should probably come up with a way in which we could collaborate and solve more of our clients' problems better. That's a peer-to-peer conversation. A retail conversation is when it's like, hey, Sobola, so good to see you again. I've been thinking about what I could sell to you, and I think you should buy my mastermind. I'm being a bit of a smartass here, but Richard, you and I we've been on the Marketers Cruise a couple of times, and it's a big cruise. I've spoken on it a couple of times. I guess I'm speaking on it next time. But what's interesting about that is it's supposedly a ship full of people who want to do joint ventures. So this woman comes and says, hey, I really want to talk to you about joint ventures. Like, oh, that's fantastic. So I set up a meeting. We go and we're sitting down at the table. And like literally, I'm not there for 30 seconds. And she is starting to pitch me on her mastermind. So I don't say anything at the beginning because it's like, well, maybe she's trying to like give me context about what this JV is going to be. But this goes on and on and on. It's very clearly a retail pitch. And that she's thinking that I'm a prospect for a mastermind. So finally, it's like, I'm like, it's like, did I at any point in time imply or say to you or communicate in some way, shape, or form that I'd be interested in your mastermind? She's like, no. Well, why are you talking to me ad nauseum about the mastermind that I'm not interested in and I didn't ask you about? She's like, super articulate at that point in time. And it's like, you invited me here to have a JV conversation, and not one word has been uttered about how we could JV. You're just trying to sell me your stupid shit, which if I wanted it, I've already bought it. It's like, that's just not okay. And by the way, all she had to do was to say one sentence, which is, hey, we have an incredibly cool mastermind where we do X, Y, Z, and LMNOP. Would you be interested in hearing about it? Agreement. That's all we need. And it transforms a pitch to an invitation with agreement. So here's the deal. The truth of the matter is this. I would say for most of you at JVology Live, there are going to be potential retail clients. And here's what I'm going to say to you. Keep a lid on your retail offer unless somebody says, hey, I might be interested in that. And if they do, then you say, great, let's have a conversation about what that would look like to fix you up. But if you have a retail conversation with a peer without agreement, that is a guarantee that you have just burned a partnership opportunity. Does that make sense to you, gang? And it's the same thing. I said this yesterday. I know some of you heard it before. I'll say it again. It is this process of most entrepreneurs are so used to the selling cycle that they can't back up long enough to say, it's like, hey, what would it look like to have a peer-to-peer relationship? What would it look like to collaborate as peers to do something more meaningful? All right. Oh, Krista, yeah, and honest to goodness, and it's not that I don't. Well, actually, that's not true. I was going to say it's not that I don't like networking groups, but actually I don't like networking groups, and that's a bit of an overstatement. And I have been to networking groups that handle it beautifully, but this idea of agreement and retail sales versus peer-to-peer relationships isn't distinguished clearly enough in most networking groups for me to enjoy them. In the places where they are distinguished, I am all good. And by the way, here's the truth of the matter. I love buying stuff. I love supporting people who are selling stuff. That's all good. But it needs to the foundation of agreement. So anyway, context and environment. So I'm going to say to you this as clearly as I possibly can. May 10th to May 13th, you should get your ass to JVology Live. And Krista, by the way, was twisting my arm here a little bit. These are the two support events for the challenge. And we normally end the challenge $97 ticket piece. We normally end that at the end of the 5-day challenge. But here's the honest to God truth. If you want to get to JVology Live and you haven't bought a $97 ticket, tonight when we are done, that's the end of that road. And you can thank Krista for twisting my arm and giving me a hard time about it. Because normally it's like at this stage of the game, it's the joint venture success system, the entire process, or nothing. So we're gonna let you do that, and it'll be cool. Just get your ass there, and you'll see what the difference is when the context and environment is right in terms of welcoming your invitations. This picture is a picture of one of the first JV groups I was ever in with, this was Christian Michelson's group. And I am certain that many of you have emails from half of these people in your inbox right now, from Gina Gabellini, Eben Pagan, Milana Lashinsky, goodness gracious. Actually, we're just doing a deal right now with Brenda. Anyway, yeah, truly a fantastic group. And when I started in this group, here's the honest God truth, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I had built 7-figure bricks and mortar businesses. I wanted to learn this digital marketing thing. I got an invitation, which I ultimately took. But I went into that room without a clue. But it was very obviously very quick that I had a lot to learn. And this group served and supported me tremendously. So much so that I immediately went and created my own JV groups, which started out as called the Banff Summit. This is now just called the JVology Summit. This is a bunch of us hanging out in Cabo in the last little while. I just glanced and it's like, it looks like we're all at a wedding. It's very, very white. I'm going to blame Krista for that one too. It's all good.
It's called
What's that?
It's called a white party. We're all on the beach in Cabo. It was epic.
It was pretty epic. I have to admit. Jay, you need white pants. Niece, the odds of me buying white pants are substantially slim. No,
apparently Canadians don't need white linen pants.
It seems odd, but yeah, they're not a big hit at Christmas here. Anyway, my point is this, is that if you can get into the right environment and context, we're not talking about a couple of $1,000 sale. We're talking about 6 figures. We're talking about 7 figures. We're talking about beyond 7 figures. And one of the things that I want to just plant this seed with you is, I say this to folks all the time at the beginning of the summit, is that every single person here could add $10,000 to $100,000 to your bottom line in the next 3 to 12 months. Every single person. But what's interesting about that is lots of times people don't think about that further down the road. Well, if they can do that in 1 year, what would happen in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? The lifetime value of a partner is unbelievable. And here's what I see happening all the time is folks spinning their wheels, trying to focus on the short term. And I get we all have short-term obligations we've got to fulfill. But the honest God truth is, you got to figure out a way to fulfill the short-term obligations and plant the seeds that become the 6, 7, 8-figure relationships over the span of a couple of decades. And I have a ton of partners that I've had for the span of a couple of decades. That is what we're talking about. So yes, I want you to get your ass to JVology Live. Yes, I think you'd be batshit crazy not to. But don't think about it. It's like, oh, I'm going to a 3-day event. That's not what you're doing. You are going to an environment to build relationships with partners who, if you are paying attention, will be with you, quite frankly, for the rest of your business life. That's what you're doing. And honest to God, I don't know, and I'm just going to be transparent and judgmental. I don't really know why people don't see and understand that right away. Doesn't really make sense to me. And the only story I have about it is that they're so focused on the fire that is before them that they can't see what is really necessary in 6 months, in 12 months, in 4 years, in 8 years, in 12 years. If nothing else happens at JBology Live, but you begin to shift the focal length of your goals and your vision, if nothing else happens except for that, and we introduce you to 3, 5, 10 people that might be with you a decade from now, you just had the best weekend of your life. That's what I'm inviting you to do. All right. I think most of you have seen this, but I actually just want to play it again. And I've got to, this is what other people say about JBology Live. And I want to be clear about this. These aren't scripted testimonials. These aren't things where we chase people. This is stuff that people say to us because it's meaningful to them. So I'm just going to play this real quick. Is the sound going through? No? Oh, okay, I missed a part. Give me a second. I'm going to fix this. Let me try it one more time. Oh, there we go. I missed the share sound button. That makes all the difference in the world.
It is a really positive, welcoming community. When Jay talks about we're better together, it's not just a phrase, it's how he has set this up.
What an amazing 3-day event it's been so far. I've made some great connections. Jay taught me things I'd never even heard of beforehand. You want to come to this, for sure.
It's really wonderful to be able to be mentored and advised by people who've been doing this for years and years, and I've just learned so much.
You owe it to yourself to learn about JBology and show up to these events.
I just want you to know that this is an unbelievable opportunity. We don't need to do it alone.
I was looking for ways to joint venture with people. I know Jay really well, and I trusted him to put together a great event, and I was not disappointed.
It's been eye-opening. It's been full of aha moments. I think that the biggest thing for me is I've got 5 upstream partners, 5 downstream partners, and I understand what that means to have the upstream and downstream partners.
The connections alone made this whole venture worthwhile. It is really phenomenal. The ideas and the concepts of how these things can mesh, the way you can leapfrog through simplistic things that become so money-making. The deal that kept on coming up is, you want to make $1 million? Then people will show you how you can do it, and they've done it before. If you're thinking about doing this, you have no idea what it is, just sign up, book off the 3 days. It's going to be so worth your time. It's freaking amazing.
I came here looking to create a list, a community, a network, and it's more than that. Whether you're starting your first business or whether you're wanting to grow your business to a different level, I encourage anyone at any level to come, because you just get more than just the people, the list. It's all about community and helping each other.
I ended up leaving the event with more than 20 connection calls, booked on 6 podcasts, and I'm having about 15 conversations with people that know what I do, and they know whether or not I'll be a good fit for their audience.
I have some real answers that I can implement, like right now, today.
I have never failed to have people I connect with and work with afterwards and get involved with, and it's rare. It's very rare to find this kind of community.
So here's the point to that. I just want you to juggle whatever you got to juggle to get the value of being in a room with people who are ready to partner and ready to build relationships. It is spectacular. And now somehow I have Microsoft Word opening. All right, so I'm gonna go through our basically our second last piece here, and then we're gonna wrap up. So connection and relevance. And I don't know if you, how many of you recognize Justin, but he was also in the other picture. I was standing beside him, and Justin, by the way, here, I'm gonna go back, see if you can actually see it. So this is Justin up beside me so I'm in the blue shirt, then Justin is over here, and Justin never, ever, ever, ever smiles in a picture, like ever. He is like one of the most serious things in the universe. He's quite funny in that note, but you can also see here is that his head is glowing and he's got a smile on him. Now, a little story back to the other picture of the blue shirt is that I know he's all serious. So right when they're taking the picture, I'm actually grabbing his ass and goosing him. And even in the middle of the goose, this is him. Anyway, the reason that he is smiling so much is this. I discover that he likes the Calgary Flames. In fact, it's his team. He lives in Vancouver, which is a little bit blasphemous. I also happen to be fortunate enough to live on a street with a couple of the Calgary Flames. And when we got to the playoffs a few years ago, which by the way, we're in the playoffs this year, which is pretty exciting, but that's another story. I knew that he loved that idea. So I sent him a note and he'd supported me tremendously in learning, what was going on in that community. So I sent him a note and said, hey, I've got tickets to a playoff game. You fly yourself here. We'll take care of you. It'll be all fantastic. And it'll be a terrific night. So anyway, I take him to a Flames game in the Stanley Cup playoffs in the Saddle Dome, which he had never been at either. And his head glowed like he was a 4-year-old at Christmas for that entire time. Now, I want to be very clear about this. At that stage game, we were not yet JV partners, but he had supported me and done a ton of fantastic things, helping me understand the process. Now, let's be clear. I hoped that we would build a relationship significant enough that he would become a great JV partner, which he did, by the way, but it wasn't my motive. So here's the keys. Contribute on their terms and values. My list was tiny and shitty compared to his. However, I had access to playoff tickets when pretty much nobody else did. That's something that can be used, right? That's something that we can contribute. So how do we contribute on their terms and values? To them, to their partner, to their tribe, to their family. And one of the things that we're looking for here is something we teach again in JVology Live and spend a good chunk of time on, which is something called multiplexing. And multiplexing is where we're looking for the unusual interests, the unusual connections, the ways in which we have shared life experience or perspective or culture or background or history or hobbies, or the better we can use multiplexing to create more bonds with our partners, the more likely you are to have partners that are with you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road. And the more likely you are to have partnerships that, if you were to put monetary value on them, are 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, and beyond. So connection and relevance. It's not what is important to you. It is what is important to them. Ryan Levesque, New York Times bestselling list author, has spoken on my stage. I've spoken on his stage. He and his boys are Lego fans. Lego is quite inexpensive. We sent little miniature Lego men to him and his boys. He loved it. It broke through the myriad of people who were trying to get his attention. It was something that was fun. It was something that was meaningful. It was something that they loved, and therefore they did it. The belt I gave an example of earlier. It's another great example of that. Now, I told you we're not going to spend a ton of time on conversion and results, but I got to get hustling and movement shaken here. Oh, perfect. And by the way, Krista put the sponsor special deal in. So that's what she was twisting my arm about. So I'm going to give you an invitation for JVology Live and the Joint Venture Success System all together with a bunch of kick-ass bonuses. And I'm going to be there in about 5 minutes. But if you can't do the big deal, for crying out loud, do the ticket to JVology Live, for crying out loud. Now, this next piece about being attractive to JV partners. First and foremost, you've got to do your homework and give some confidence. And what I mean by that is you shouldn't really be counting on your partners to figure out what your conversions are. So you should be doing things like testing on your own list. You should be doing things like small beta testing with other smaller partners. You should be doing things like paid traffic so you know what's going on. And that is unbelievably important. Now, the part that I think starting folks mistake a lot, I don't know how else to put that, is that you've got to understand that every single bit of support has opportunity cost for your partner. So when you get to a particular size, when you get to a particular list size, when you get to a particular success level, when you're showing up on leaderboards here, there, and everywhere, guess what happens? You become incredibly attractive to JV partners and they pursue you. But here's the honest to God truth. If I have 52 weeks, let's say, and in 52 weeks, I'm going to do 2-week chunks, that means I got 26 great opportunities to be a partner. And if I choose to support your process, that means I'm saying no to, in all likelihood on average, 4 or 5 people. So if you come to me and say, great, I've got a $37 product and I'm going to give you half the money, and I think that you should get X number of dollars. Well, I'm sometimes comparing that to another program that's $2,000 that will take the same amount of time, effort, and energy, but it's going to put $15,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 in my bank account. So please understand opportunity cost. And I've had this conversation with so many people that just sort of like, well, they're kind of lucky they get to mail from me because I'm going to sell like mad. I'm just going to send them money. They don't have to do anything. Well, that's one way of thinking about it, except it doesn't feel that I'm so lucky to be able to mail for you when I have 27 other folks who perhaps are better qualified, better experienced, and make more money and create more value than you. So you just got to understand that that's the process. And then the other part about this is you have got to deliver. The goal should be that you JV with somebody, they send you a couple of clients, you deliver to those clients, and those clients send the person who introduced you to them a thank you. So really work on the delivery process. You've got to really stand in that space and get that done well. So the very last thing I'm going to say to you about that, and this is a good example of ease. One of the reasons you want a great relationship is life's too short for friction, first and foremost. And when you have a great relationship, partners will do things for you that they wouldn't normally do just within the context of conversion results and all those things. And the biggest thing about this is be easy to work with. Get as much of the things done as possible. Have as little amount of friction as possible. Quite literally, we were having a conversation here today. I spoke on somebody's summit. A friend of mine, I like her and all the rest of it, but here's the honest to God truth. There's a line for me, which is if it takes me longer to sign up for the summit and to fill out your stupid form and to show up for an extra little special this and to if it takes longer to do that than the actual presentation in the summit, I'm out. I want to send you my bio. I want to send you my pic. I want you to send me the links. I'll send it and then we're going to talk. And that all should take me 3 minutes. My team will do a little bit more, but that's it. If it's too damn complex and there's too many hoops of fire to jump through, I am out. Okay, so think about it from the perspective of ease. What's the easiest way to get the result, to have the experience, to have a meaningful relationship built? What's the easiest way? So we're going to wrap this up. Here's the long and the short of it. Your business. You can build it the easy way, which is joint ventures. You can build it the hard way, which is paid ads, closed systems, and going out there and putting your back in it. The decision that you have to make is, are you going to truly, genuinely integrate joint ventures into your business? And the answer is you really, really should. Or are you going to do it the hard traditional way? Here's what I love about JVology. Out of abundance, he took abundance, and abundance still remained. What that means is this. If you come into the community from a space of abundance, willing to give, willing to connect, willing to contribute, willing to do all those things, if you do that, you will find that it returns to you 1,000-fold. If you choose to invest in the joint venture success system, which I'm going to invite you to in a moment, it will come back to you 1,000-fold. And I mean that in all seriousness. One partner doing one deal will pay for your entire year. That's it. And we will deliver to you a steady stream of partners for an entire year. So here's what it takes to win in this space. You need digital training, you need assets, you need resources, you need information, boom, when you need it. That is what you absolutely need. You also need a live intensive partner event, something that catapults you forward, something that inspires you, something that gets you connected to people, something that gets you in front of other people's tribes, something that gets you on podcasts, something on Facebook Live, gets you emailing, gets a webinar done, something that moves the needle quickly. That's what JVology Live is. And then what you really need is long-term community, because to build long-term relationships means connecting with people time and time and time again. It means being there when somebody has a need. It means showing up for somebody in their challenges. It means showing up for the community. And when you do that, magic happens. So here's the deal. I've already talked a lot about JVology Live. Do it. You'll leave with partners, you'll leave with money, and you will have a stunningly different way of thinking about JVs for the rest of your life. The Joint Venture Success System, this is the digital program that we have, is these entire 12 modules, all the way from joint venture basics, some of the things that we've been talking about here, all the way to the fundamentals of successful launches. And we're talking about product launch formula launches that have some complexity to them. Now, we've been selling that from 1997 for years, and we've sold it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and it is worth that and a whole bunch more. And if you decide to register right now, here's what happens. You get the JV Success System. You get these bonuses: the Know Your Metrics online training, $197, the 6-figure launch secrets. This is what we distilled from our, well, we did 3 6-figure launches that added up to $1 million in launches for $497. You get 2 tickets to JVology Live. So you bring a friend, a partner, someone else you want to JV with. And we'll even give you 2 JVology Live event recordings, which, by the way, that content and our guest speakers and our training evolves all the time. So that is worth its weight in gold, $994 that's worth. So the bonus value is $3,682 plus the JVSS, which is $1,997. So that's $5,679, which you can get it all for, oh, by the way, this is an error, just to be clear about this, because it usually is the $1,997, but actually you can get it for $997 or 3 payments of $397. But we will make it even better than that, but not free. For those people, this is the best time in the universe to buy our stuff, because it's after the 5-day challenge. And we will add to that, number 1, Global Lounge for a year. That is where we will deliver you partners on a silver platter. We get together twice a month, every month, people from all over the world, JVing, coming and doing joint venture invitations, coming and supporting one another in terms of live events and programs. It's just frankly spectacular. And then you'll get the JVology Roadmap, a 12-day little email course, which, by the way, kicks off on Saturday, I believe, maybe Friday or Saturday, 12 days leading up to JVology Live, which is amazing. And here's the kicker of the freaking universe. You get all of these things, your ducks in a row, I will JV with you. So what that means is we will send an email, we will interview on the JVology show, we will put you in our Friday newsletter, we will figure out what is the best route for you based on what you've got going on. And that, we don't know what the price, what that value is worth. I know people who have made tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars, but we pick a number of $5,000. So that total bonus comes out to $6,661, and you can get it all for $997 with 3 payments of $397. And that is at the, I think you've got the address there, Krista, there we go. It is at jvology.com/JVSS. And I'm just going to type that in here, JVS : JVology.com. Oh, speed demon over there. All right. So here's the truth of it. You've done the challenge. You've met some folks. You understand what it takes to get JV ready. You understand what it takes to actually do great invitations. And the single greatest support in getting your invitations right is practice. And at JVology Live, you will be in small groups. You will be in exercise and activities where you are going to be practicing that invitation quite literally with every single other person there. So depending upon our events, that could be somewhere between 70 and 130 people. So what if there was 100 people there? You would practice it approximately 100 times. And here's the truth of it. In that process, it is a safe contextual environment, meaning that everybody's there for the same purpose. You get real-time feedback. You know if people are leaning in and saying, hell yes, I want to do that, that's pretty powerful, and you will leave with partners. If you're getting, the blank stares, then you get to go back and refine it. And we will practice and tweak and adjust as we go along. And Jason, yes, of course, I was just going to suggest that. And I know there's people who can't make May, so I would strongly suggest that you buy now and you can take it in the December event. It will absolutely be your best deal. It gets you access to the digital programs. It gets you into the global lounge even before the event. So you get to sort of get the wheels on the bus in a more powerful manner. And yeah, take advantage of this because this is the best pricing we ever do right after these challenges. So if this is interesting to you, click the button, get yourself registered, make sure you set aside the dates. So if that's in May or in the December one, and then you're going to get a little welcome call, you're going to get a little greeting and intake process. And then you can actually start going to the Global Lounge, have access to all of the digital content immediately, and start getting the relationships built, because that's the real key. Yes, we always do have some fun. That is an understatement of the universe. And honest to goodness, we just attract great, good, cool people. All right, I have a moment or two for questions. Is there anything that I can answer for anyone in terms of, if you're on the fence or if you're uncertain or is this really going to apply to me? I've got a little bit of time. You can put it in the chat. You can just simply raise your hand. I'm happy to just unmute you and do everything I can to help you make, please hear this, the right decision for you. I am uninterested in selling anyone. You've got to make the decision that is most aligned to you.
I have a quick
Jay
question.
is a major goofball. That is true. Denise.
It's very simple in some ways. Is it the time that is on the event? Is it mountain time or what is the?
Good question. And it is mountain time. You're exactly right. So yes.
If it's 9 to 6, it's mountain time, 9 to 6.
Correct. Yes. Me and time zones don't get along. So everything is in mountain.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else I can answer, gang? Going once. Going twice. Okay, 3 times gone. So here's all I want you to think about. The journey of entrepreneurship is not easy. And good Lord, I have the utmost respect for anyone courageous enough to throw their hat in that ring. I actually think that entrepreneurs are, frankly, some of the most courageous human beings on planet Earth, because it takes guts, it takes courage, it takes a capacity to navigate difficulties like you would not believe. But entrepreneurship is also, for most folks, incredibly lonely. Lots of entrepreneurs have families that have these things called jobs. They don't understand what it actually takes to make shit actually happen, to bring something from an idea to reality and have people pay for that. And here's one of our core values at JBology, which is we are better together. And what that genuinely means, gang, and I want you to settle into that for a moment. We're better together. What that genuinely means is this. I have unique capacities and abilities that are very, very different than Derek's. Roy has unique capacities and abilities that are very different than Krista's. The one thing that is true is that when we come together in the grounding of abundance and true collaboration, we can not just change our own businesses, but we can change the experience for our tribe, for our community, for the people that we serve. Entrepreneurship is not a competition. That is a myth and a BS story. Entrepreneurship works best as collaboration when we focus on how do we solve our clients' problems better, and how can we do that in a fun. Seriously, you could have fun at this, but it's really hard to do on your own. So if you are ready to set down, what I'm going to call the Lone Ranger approach or the Lone Wolf approach, and actually join a community that has your back, that has your clients, and that has a bunch of fun and makes great money doing it, please come attend JBology Live. Because the honest God truth is you do not have a shortage of resources, but you very well may have a shortage of joint venture partners. So on that note, gang, click the button. If you can do the joint venture success system with all the bonuses, that's an entire year of support for $997. Quite literally, you will be given partners on a silver platter for a year. If you can't quite get yourself up to that spot, for the love of all things good in the world, then just get a ticket. Get the ticket at the discounted rate that Krista arm wrestled me for. And then we will see you at JBology Live, May 10th to 13th. And we're going to have a ton of fun. We're going to make some money. We're going to build great relationships, and we're going to make a difference for our clients. We will see you all soon. Bye-bye.